So this week we're going to be talking about informed consent in clinical research. And it's very important that you understand about informed consent because if subjects are not properly consented, then the data that we generate for that subject in a clinical trial could potentially not be used to help evaluate that particular drug, which could put in jeopardy whether or not that drug gets approved for marketing by the regulatory authority. So no other element of clinical research generates as much discussion, training, and conference topics as informed consent. And those of you that work in the industry or hopefully will work in the industry will learn that as you go along. Many of the examples that we've learned about so far, many of the examples of misconduct and other examples where investigators have behaved badly have involved subjects that were not properly consented. They didn't properly give their voluntary consent to participate in research. So it's very important. Probably the most important thing for you to understand is that informed consent is a process. It's not just the subject's signature on a piece of paper. But it is very much a process where the subject is educated about the clinical trial that they're going to participate in and all the associated potential risks and any potential benefits that they might receive from the research. So at any rate, I want you to make sure you understand that, and then it'll become a little more clear to you as we move along in this week's content. Our learning objectives for this week will be to understand the importance of the informed consent process, also to discuss the concept of therapeutic misconception in clinical research, and that means the concept that the patient believes that they're actually getting therapy instead of participating in a research study. And then we're going to define the elements of informed consent that are required by the FDA regulations and also by the ICH E6 guidelines. So we'll have an exercise that helps you understand a few of the differences there. Finally, we're going to review and assess an informed consent document for regulatory compliance. So you'll find the document up there in the week 4 folder on Moodle. It'll be a PDF file. You can download that. You can print it out if you like. It might be easier to work with it that way. For your readings for this week, we're going to read Is Informed Consent Always Necessary? That'll be on page 207 in your textbook. And then the author in this document discusses some ways in which informed consent may not be necessary. There are actually research projects where it is not necessary, but there are very few of those. Also, we'll talk about false hopes and best data, where the author is discussing therapeutic misconception and what it is. And then finally, in the article entitled Therapeutic Misconception in the Informed Consent Process, this author actually reviews the false hopes and best data article and discusses it in a little more detail. So I think these articles will be very helpful in you as you go through the exercise this week. Also, for your reference, I've included the FDA Informed Consent information sheet, which is located at the link below. It's also out there on the online module for week 4, so you can easily find it. Then also the ACRP white paper discussing the process of informed consent. ACRP is the Association of Clinical Research Professionals. It's a professional development organization that has a lot of educational material, provides certification, and professional development activities. There are also links to the informed consent requirements for both the FDA and also for ICH. FDA 21 CFR Part 50, Subpart B, Section 50.25, which is found at the link below on the slide. We'll discuss the various requirements that FDA requires to be in an informed consent document. Also, the ICH requirements in E6 section 4.8.10 are found at the link below. Both of these links are on the module page that are in week 4 on Moodle, so you can easily pull up that page and just click on them, and you'll find them. You'll see that they're very, very similar. There are a few differences, and you've also probably encountered some of that in this week's Project 1 assignment, where you're comparing the differences between the FDA requirements and the ICH requirements. So at any rate, you'll have access to those, and those will be helpful for your discussion board assignment for this week. And then finally, for your discussion board assignment, you will be using the FDA and the ICH guidelines, the listings of the required elements of informed consent, to review a sample informed consent form, WAIT-TEC, that's posted out on Moodle. You'll find it in the week 4 folder. And what you're going to do is you're going to document and determine if the document contains all of the required elements for both FDA and ICH guidelines. So you can please indicate any elements that are missing, and you can post your analysis on Moodle on the discussion forum. Not looking for a lengthy analysis here, but just kind of tell us what's there and what's not there. For this week, you're not required to reply to any of your classmates on the discussion board, but you may want to go ahead and review some of their postings as well. And then I'll be reviewing them and asking some questions as we go along and kind of wrapping it up at the end of the week.